on the mic and do a quick introduction, and we'll get rolling. So good afternoon and welcome to our Friday Transportation Seminar Series. We're very pleased to have Commissioner Sam Adams from the City of Portland here today, and I'm just going to turn it over to Commissioner Adams.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've got a presentation to make, and I look forward, though, most of all to the questions and answer. That's usually the most interesting part of this discussion. I'm especially glad to be here, given the good work underway here at Portland State University in the areas of transportation, in the area of civil engineering, planning, and also sustainable development and economic development. Those are all some of the ingredients and the elements that I'm going to be talking about today as I get into the issue of green streets, how to deal with stormwater runoff by using an emerging approach that has really been piloted by the folks at the City of Portland in both the Bureau of Environmental Services and the Office of Transportation and the Office of Sustainable Development at the City of Portland. I am the Transportation Commissioner, and I'm also the Environmental Services Commissioner. And in the City of Portland, it's a commission form of government, and you're elected at large, nonpartisan, and then the mayor assigns you actual departments, or we call them bureaus, to run. So those are two of the bureaus that I run. About $800 million a year in city operations I'm responsible for, and about 1,100 employees in environmental services and in transportation. So, the City of Portland, imagine what it was like before we built it up. When nature did the work, life was good if you lived here, and everything was in harmony. Then we added about 545,000 people. It's just under 200,000 dwellings, and it changes the picture considerably. Then on top of that, you add the roads necessary for getting around. Paved streets cover about 19% of Portland's land area, and they contribute 66% of the total annual stormwater runoff. Stormwater is when rain hits a surface. The magical transformation happens. When rain hits a surface, it suddenly becomes stormwater. And we have a lot of stormwater. Within the 145 square miles within the city limits, it equals about 40 square miles of building, pavements, and streets. So about 40 square miles of impervious surfaces that rain does not penetrate. Therefore, it runs somewhere else, making it stormwater. 37 inches of rainfall produce 80 to 100 billion gallons of stormwater per year in the City of Portland. For the past 8 months, there has been a transformation in my thinking. What I used to think was rainwater is just stormwater about to be birthed. We have to deal with up to 100 billion gallons of stormwater a year. It's an amazing task for us. Now, where does the stormwater flow? Before there was any building, any construction, any improvements, it ran naturally to the watersheds. There are 5 watersheds in the City of Portland. They all run to the Willamette River, except for the headwaters of Fano Creek right here. They run to the Tualatin River. They're part of the Tualatin watershed. But most people living in the City of Portland don't think of living in a watershed. And part of how we make progress on the issue of reclaiming and improving the Willamette River is, of course, reclaiming and improving the watersheds that feed the Willamette. So that's our task. We have, and just to give you a sense of the shape that they're in, every single one of our watersheds in the City of Portland gets a failing grade from state government. In the Willamette watershed, which you can see up there, which is a lot of the center of the city, we have problems with metals and toxics. It's the oldest part of the city. It's where the industry was founded back at the beginning of this city, and we've got a lot of problems with metals and toxics. In the Columbia Slough, which is along the northern part of the city closest to the Columbia, we have erosion issues and water quality. If you've been to the Columbia Slough, it was just used by industry as a dumping ground for almost a century. Fano Creek, which is on the southwest part of Portland, the biggest problem there is temperature and not enough water in the watershed. In Johnson Creek, on the other hand, we have a problem with too much water, and we're in the process of buying up what was in its natural state, the natural floodplain that people have built into. We've purchased about 130 acres of the floodplain, and we remove houses. We still have about 130 acres left to go. And in Tryon Creek, we have issues of erosion, temperature, and water quality in Tryon Creek as well. So there are lots of problems in the world. Why should you care about stormwater? Why do you care where it flows exactly? Well, just from residential use of property, we get herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, detergent cleaners, animal waste, paint and household chemicals, motor fuels, oils, lubricants, solvents, and then as you get into the commercial use of property, you get into things like industrial toxins, heat, and erosion caused by excessive flow rate. If the stormwater doesn't go into the ground to get cooled, if it just flows directly to the river, it hits the river or the watersheds or the streams too hot. Heat kills fish as much as pollution does. I also want to point out that when it comes to stormwater runoff from streets, motor fuels, oils, lubricants, solvents, tire rubber, and brake shoe linings are not cleaned by the city's sewer system. There isn't anything that cleans these things out of the city's sewer system. So even though everything that goes into the pipe, everything that goes into the combined sewer system, we'll talk about that a little more in a minute, goes for treatment, there is no treatment that cleans those things out before the city's sewer system dumps out into the Willamette River. All of our sewage system is intended to go to the Columbia River. If it goes to the Willamette River, it's an unintended sewer overflow at this point. So how do we manage street stormwater runoff right now? A lot of people don't realize that we have about 14,000 sumps in the public streets. We have 870 miles of combined sewers, which means that even though you might see a street that has the grate, most of those grates go into sumps. And about 870 miles of our combined sewers and the grates in the street that you see. Sometimes they go to sumps, sometimes they go to the combined sewer where they do get treated, but again, treatment doesn't clean everything out. But if you live in southwest Portland, even though you see a street, it looks like any other street in the city, and even though you see the grate in the street, it goes directly to the river. Doesn't pass go, doesn't do anything, goes directly to the river. And when it hits the river, it can look a lot like this. So just to give you a sense citywide of what is served by what, the magenta is the combined sewers. The dark red, apparently this is magenta. I think of it as pink, but somebody thinks of it as magenta. The dark red is the separated sanitary sewers. The city then also, when you get to stormwater management facilities, so to be clear, because I wasn't, this is the sanitary sewer system. We have separated and we have combined. So the dark red is where the pipes that are in the ground only deal with sanitary sewer waste. The pink is where the sanitary and the stormwater are dealt with in the same pipes. That's the older part of the system in some cases. So that's sanitary. This is stormwater. We run two separate sewer systems here. The stormwater, the blue dots, if you can see all the blue dots here, are sumps. And you can see they go all the way up into North Portland where I live. And a lot of our streets are dealt with by sumps. The green are separated sewers, and in Southwest again, these are separated sewers, but they all run right to the river, either the Tualatin or the Willamette. So, many of you heard about the CSO project, and you might ask, we're going to spend $1.4 billion on the combined sewer overflow project. On the west side, the pipe is 16 feet wide. On the east side, we're going to soon be breaking ground on the other section of pipe that's 25 feet wide. Shouldn't that take care of this whole issue? Well, it doesn't. Again, for a number of reasons. One, if you live in Southwest, again, goes directly to the river. If you live on a street for street stormwater runoff on a street with a sump, it doesn't go to this pipe as well. We have some of the highest rates of stormwater rates in the United States. We charge people separately for their sanitary charge, which is very high compared to other cities in the United States, to pay for that $1.4 billion CSO project. But we also have one of the highest stormwater rates in the country. And when you hear about that, the major reason for that is that in Portland, as opposed to most other cities, the sewer ratepayers pay for all the street stormwater charges. And in other cities, automobile payers pay for it with gas tax. Here, the sewers pay for everything. In most other cities, it's paid for by gas tax. Some other statistics there. So, we're trying to rethink stormwater. And we think that we can make stormwater into a positive. And you're going to see how we're trying to manifest and re-engage our community into turning stormwater into what it was before we were a built-out city, which is a positive for the environment. But even if we didn't want to do that, there are many regulations that would make us do that. We have the Safe Drinking Water Act. We have the Clean Water Act. We have the Endangered Species Act. We have land use laws, and we have the Portland Harbor, which we've been designated a Superfund site because of historical pollution. And there are many things that drive us to do this, even if we didn't want to do it. This just gives you a few of the other regulations that you might not know about, but they'll be on the test later in the discussion, of the kinds of things that we have to react to in terms of trying to deal with both sanitary and stormwater sewage. So now we're getting into how to turn this into a positive, and we do look back on what happened before we were a built-out city. The typical annual water budget in forested land cover, and we were forested and field land cover here, when the stormwater hits the ground, about 37% of it evaporates. Only 0.3% is surface runoff. And that's an important thing to sort of key in on compared to the next slide. Then when about 25% of it is within the first 5 feet from the surface, and then at about 37% of it goes into the groundwater. But in a typical urbanized area, 25% of it does go up in evaporation. Surface runoff goes from 0.3 to 30%. Interflow, which is again 5 feet below the surface of the ground, is about 30%, and only 15% goes to ground cover. So we go from 0.3 to 30. Interflow goes up from 25 to 30. Groundwater goes from 36%. You lose about 10% to about 15%. Now, the problem with so much, up to 60%, either surface runoff or interflow is, again, it hits the rivers, or it hits your streams or creeks hotter, more polluted, than if it went down into the groundwater and was both cooled and filtered. That first 20 feet of soil is what filters out most of the bad stuff, that's a very technical term, bad stuff in stormwater. So, what's the best way to deal with stormwater, street stormwater? Manage it as close to the source as possible. Don't put it in a pipe if you can help it. And basically try to, in an urban setting, try to mimic the natural environment. If you have a house and you have downspouts, just let your downspouts go. Let them out into your yard, let them out into your garden. Subsurface filtration is what you saw earlier when the slide was up on the sumps. We get so much stormwater off just a block of street that we can't just let it sort of meander around in people's yards because it would flood their basements or do other damage. So we had to do sumps, but sumps are a pale substitute for just letting it percolate down from the top. Sumps is a situation where you just get so much volume, you've got to create some capacity for that sump to fill up when it gets really rainy, and then, when it stops raining, it deals with a large amount of water. Other storm-only facilities, flow to drainage way, river, or storm-only pipe, like in southwest Portland, where the stormwater goes on the surface directly to the river. That's a third. And then the last and most expensive are combined facilities. When you mix stormwater with sanitary sewage, which is really warm, by the time it hits the Columbia River, it is far too hot. And again, it hasn't been fully filtered, the natural filtering that comes from letting it percolate down from the surface. So we always look, when it comes to street stormwater, to get multiple benefits, even beyond these. So we're going to talk about what we've been piloting in the city of Portland for the past 6 years has been the creation of green streets. And a green street is a street designed with landscape areas that capture, clean, and infiltrate stormwater. And infiltrate means let it percolate down to the groundwater. This is an example of Glencoe Elementary School Raingarden. This was basically a field, just a part of the school, a corner of the school that wasn't really used. It is, you're going to see a couple of different examples. This is a rain garden. They can look a lot more natural than this. This is something that was intended to sort of be nice enough that if in the very back there you can see a path where you can actually sort of meander through it and it becomes sort of a green area for the neighborhood. Green Street guiding principles: manage stormwater at both the source and at the surface. Use plants and soil to slow, filter, clean, and infiltrate the runoff. And design facilities that aesthetically enhance the community. That last piece is what we're learning is once people see the facilities, we've got 3 different examples here along the right. We'll go into those in more detail in a minute. Is people want them, as opposed to feeling like it's big government forcing yet another, another thing on a neighborhood. They actually want these things. This is an example of retrofit at a site along a street that has a couple of different benefits. One, it addresses the city's goals for neighborhood livability, sustainable development. It adds green spaces, and in the city of Portland, if you live in East Portland, east of 82nd, it is an incredibly park-deficient part of town. We do really well in terms of providing parks and green spaces west of East 82nd, but east of 82nd, which we recently annexed, it is very park deficient, and this is an area with green streets that we can provide at least some more green infrastructure in the area. The other benefits of a green street is that it makes the civil engineered investments, with all due respect, last longer. The more we're growing as a community, and the less of the stormwater we put into the big pipe and into existing pipes as we grow, the longer those facilities will last. So instead of lasting 50 years, the big pipe can last 100 or 150 years if we can get that stormwater out of the system, because that big pipe will use up its capacity with growth in about 50 years, and then we'll be back to spilling, overflowing into the river, again, stopping the stormwater from going into the big pipe will make it last longer. And again, it meets federal requirements for pollution reduction and source management. It cools the water, and it saves money. So, in the Hollywood area, Hollywood has some deficient sewers. It was causing flooding in basements. It was causing unsafe streets. And it's an example of how the Bureau of Environmental Services, working with transportation, did a project that actually, a Green Street project that actually saved money. So it was 20 blocks. The landscape flow reduction approach, which was the Green Street approach, cost about $3.5 million. We had to retrofit some streets with planters, rooftops, disconnecting pipes that go into the street or that just flow out into the street from driveways. And we did have to replace some pipes. But the conventional method, the standard method of just digging up all the pipes and replacing all the pipes would have cost $1 million more. Now, in the process of doing that, again, we go back to the multiple benefits. You have more water going into the groundwater, and about 20, it wasn't on the slide, but between 20 and 30% of the water you see in the Willamette River and the water you see in Johnson Creek or Tryon Creek or elsewhere, about 20 to 30% of that water comes up from below, or it should. A healthy river has a significant amount of water that comes up from below. If you've got the stormwater going into the ground, comes up from below. This is another example of a Green Street on Southwest 12th, right nearby here. Unsightly, hard to get out of, not much going for it. And after. And I'll talk a little bit about, this was done in July 2005. It manages stormwater. It also filters pollutants. In addition to just the plants, it's designed in a way to filter pollutions, and also provides more room for people to get out of their cars. So before and after. The design of this is just an overview of the design. The drainage comes from the south, flows into the first planter. This gets a lot of stormwater. It actually is designed to flow into the first planter, and on rainy days you'll see this filled up. It really fills up, and once it overflows, then back out into the street, in here, and by the time it gets down over here, we have but a small, only on the most rainy days would we have a small amount going into the piped system, the combined sewer overflow system. And all along the way, it gets filtered. And this little pad of cement here is very important. It filters, it serves, because it's just a flat surface that the street stormwater comes in off, and it filters a lot of the brake dust. It filters paint. It filters, much like panning for gold, it filters out the heavy stuff. And then we're able to, through the Office of Transportation, then we come along and sweep these on a regular basis. So even before it hits the plant, a simple thing of a pad of cement will filter out a lot of the nastiest stuff. This is another example. This is 10,000 square feet of drainage from the block you see in forward to background. This is on Northeast Siskiyou Street, and this is after. Before. Of course, it helps that the before picture is in winter. But still, and after. This was very much supported, and now we get requests from neighborhoods all around town for wanting to do the same thing. This is a little different in that the water flows in directly. This is not the kind of street, it's not a well-traveled street, so we didn't have to worry about filtering out some of the nastier brake linings and paint specks and things like that. It flows straight through. Now when you see this thing, and any overflow goes here, when you see this thing on a normal day, it looks incredibly oversized, and you wonder why it's so sunk down. You go on a day like any day in January, and it's pretty much filled up with water. We have calculated, and you'll see later, oh, there's an example. We choose the plants very carefully. These are plants that are hardy. They can survive once they're started without watering in the summer, which is a problem with the Oregon climate, and that they have proven qualities of filtering out some of the smaller toxins. This is that Glencoe school site that I showed you earlier that was sort of circular. I think I have more pictures here. This was the design. Are there any landscape architects? Okay, this is going to be a growing field for you all. Before, after. Another shot of it. This is on the backside of Portland Nursery off Stark, Northeast Stark. This is an example of test flows. You can't do these. The other thing you need to know is you cannot do these swales in every part of town. They're very difficult to accomplish in Southwest because Southwest has the wrong kind of soil, and it doesn't. It's very important that we flow test because Southwest will slide off the hill if you do the wrong kind of Green Street treatment in the wrong kind of place. But in much of the city, we are on this we have this great soil that once existed in southeastern Washington that came here as part of the Missoula floods, and it's very deep, and we're an ideal city to do this on. So the peak flow reduction, 81%. It takes about 16 minutes for the water to percolate down. And those of you that are civil engineers, I'm sure you can make sense of that chart behind the pictures, because I can't, but I'm sure it's very, very important. We've been at this about 6 years, as I mentioned. We'll continue. We've learned a lot. We're going to continue to monitor this, including wanting to know, over time, performance over time. As you expose soil to this kind of constant inundation with water, does it compact? Does it become less proficient? We're not seeing signs of that, but that's the kind of thing that we're going to want to continue to monitor. Aesthetics, maintainability, and durability. Some of the early green treatments, a great example is if you ever have been to the Opera facility, they've sort of got one of the early green treatment parking lots. It's now full of blackberries. We've learned a lot in terms of how to battle blackberries and how to battle ivy so that they don't sort of take over. And then groundwater quality, making sure that our goal is to get billions of gallons more into the groundwater that's been filtered through this process, and we'll be able to hopefully improve the habitat on the Willamette and in the 5 watersheds. We are moving from the pilot effort to full implementation citywide on this. Council, at my request, recently passed a goal for the city of Portland that all streets within the next 10 years would be that the stormwater would be dealt with on a Green Street basis. It doesn't save us money in the next few minutes. It doesn't save us money maybe even in our lifetimes. But if someone had done this kind of work 50 years ago, we wouldn't have to be building this $1.4 billion big pipe project right now. So it is for the future. It has multiple benefits, and we'll continue to develop. My goal is to make Portland the leading city in green streets over the next 5 years. And I think it's something that will benefit the environment. It benefits neighborhoods by greening them up. It saves money eventually, if not right now. And it's the right thing to do. So now I'll answer any questions, or try to answer any questions you might have. Yes. You have to press the button. Yeah.
What's your take on the gas tax for paying for some of this? In terms of, is it possible that this would be implemented in the next few years in Portland?
Using the gas tax for some of this is possible but problematic. What the gas tax can be used on is prescribed very narrowly. But there are some elements of this, pervious pavers, pervious pavement, is another way to do a green street. You can use gas tax for those. The reasons why I don't favor pervious pavement on streets is that over time the pollution could make its way through the pervious pavements, and then you could be dealing with contamination under all the streets. I would rather deal with the contamination once it's been put in a swale than having to deal with it under all this pervious pavement. So it's difficult to use gas tax for swales. You can use it for sort of pervious paver treatments, but I don't think in the long term that that's the way to go, given that the federal and state regulatory agencies are on us all the time for auto-related pollution, especially mixed in with stormwater.
Commissioner Adams, how much parking is lost as a result of retrofitting streets to green streets, and what is the city's plan for mitigating that loss?
We work really hard to actually improve the parking environment, as was evidenced by the 12th Avenue project, where no parking was lost, and it made it easier to get in and out of your cars. A good example of, so we work with private property owners when they're retrofitting a site to try to have the facility in between the curb and the sidewalk is the best. On Siskiyou, though, when frankly there's no need for parking, no one's asking for parking, that's in many ways a cheaper, easier solution in residential areas. But I think the work on 12th Street shows that we can do this in highly congested areas and not lose a single parking spot. That's our goal. The challenges of getting green streets done just financially, I don't need to add to those challenges by making it sort of a trade-off between, retail or parking or anything else. We want to add to the environment and add to, we think we can do that in even the most urban areas. Max.
How does the project fit into the budget, and how is that expected to grow in the future?
Well, the biggest challenge we have right now is not knowing what to do, but how to pay for it. Unfortunately, I had the dubious task of being appointed transportation commissioner and then having to cut 17% out of the transportation budget because Portland is not growing as fast as the rest of the state, and gas tax proceeds are allocated on a populational proportional basis. So what we're working on, though, is to make it, we're redoing streets all the time. And so if we make it as part of the regular maintenance to the extent that we can, as we make it part of our work with developers like New Seasons on Division, as they do their development, if we just make it a part of regular business of maintenance of the city, our hope is that we can move forward in the next 10 years towards that goal of all street stormwater dealt with on site. We're going to continue to look for more gas tax paying for these stormwater facilities, but the state legislature last raised the gas tax in like 1992. Thank you, Carl. And it's going to be a hard sell. Yeah.
You've talked about what can't be done in Southwest Portland. Are there any thoughts about what can be done?
Our main task in Southwest Portland, in addition to doing green streets where we can on a limited basis, is we've been working to buy as much of the area around the streams or to buy conservation easements around headwaters and the streams themselves, Tryon Creek and others. That's our work right now in Southwest.
Is the problem in Southwest due to the Missoula floods again, in that it got the heavier part of the flood and it just doesn't filter?
It's very clayey, yeah. I'm not sure if the Missoula floods are to blame, but the soil is not absorbent, and most of it is on some sort of slope, and it just is not suitable. Yeah.
I have seen some different examples in Southwest Portland, and they don't look anything like the pictures that you've shown. So I assume your staff is working on different designs for different soils and different street types.
We are. There's the more challenging the soil, the more expensive the Green Street treatment is kind of how it goes. There are Green Street treatments that were in soil conditions or environmental conditions like Southwest that rely much more on evaporation. And trees and foliage in conditions like Southwest that don't have the soils are really important because you can get a higher percentage of the stormwater evaporated off shrubbery. So we haven't given up on Southwest by any means. We're focused on trying to get the habitat of the watershed improved. It's just these kinds of treatments are much, much more challenging. Yes?
You mentioned that the stormwater improvements would be maintained by the city.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had any thoughts as to possibly getting the residents involved or the neighborhood associations and having them help with the maintenance, maybe teaching them about how to maintain it, what types of plants are there?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Everything from just sort of cooperative handshake agreements to actually making it part of the easement, part of the legal requirement, just like right now, sidewalks are to maintain a sidewalk is the legal responsibility of the adjacent property owner. We're also looking at options to make like in this particular case, PSU, make them legally responsible for maintaining that particular stormwater treatment. Thank you, PSU. That was very nice.
You prioritize like which streets get this treatment first? Are there certain features that you look for? Or?
Well, like I said, right now we're prioritizing when a street is being going through a significant redevelopment. So, for instance, NATO Parkway right now is going through a rebuild. And when I was appointed Transportation Commissioner, there was no I don't think there was significant Green Street treatments planned for that redevelopment. We've now changed that, and you'll see an off-site where the drains go to pipes, but the pipes go to a swale off-site in the park. So we are trying to be really opportunity-driven. When we're working on a street, that's our best opportunity to get sort of green facilities included in that redevelopment or maintenance effort.
A lot of these projects look like retrofits. What sort of efforts are underway to make this sort of a requirement, a new development?
It's not a requirement of new development right now, but we're inching towards consideration of those kinds of policy directions. We currently have, on the new Columbia project in North Portland, which is basically creating a brand new neighborhood out of a public housing project, we really were testing what it meant, since we had a lot of control over that, what it would mean in terms of costs and benefits to make it a requirement. That project is basically done with mostly green streets, and I think we're going to be able to show developers in the City Council the cost benefits of this are to the point that a requirement would not bring undue hardship on developers. That doesn't mean I expect developers to stand up and cheer, but way in the back. Oh, one of my folks. Yes, you can ask me a really hard question now in public.
I was wondering if you would mind touching upon the great benefit that these offer in terms of potentially really enhancing neighborhood traffic safety.
That's true. Anything that gets closer to the actual vehicle lane up here, whether it's parked cars, whether it's interesting sidewalk treatments, anything that grabs the attention of the drivers slows them down. The less interesting the street, things to look at, the faster they tend to go. This offers opportunities to slow it down. Those bubble curves, they slow down traffic significantly. Again, they're encroaching into the vehicle lane, and that tends to slow people down. So you're right, Greg. Thank you. They offer a great benefit to traffic safety by slowing down traffic. Okay.
Would the runoff also make the streets a little safer as far as having it less slippery, because it's cleaning off some of those pollutants that maybe affect traction?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
How many retrofits have you done?
We have probably a dozen or so in town. Some of the retrofits have been done on private property, but they still deal with the street stormwater runoff. Those are the biggest win for us because they're the most cost effective. But we've got about a dozen done.
You mentioned problems with the permeable pavement in the street, but are you using them as for the landscaping? Some of your slides showed paving stones being used. I was wondering if those are permeable paving stones.
We are using the permeable paving and stones in any place we possibly can, and we will be using it on streets because there are some streets where, we're going to be using them on the west side of Nato Parkway because there's just no place to put this kind of a facility in. But you've heard my worries about the long-term potential consequences of that. I still think it's better than nothing. Yeah.
I was wondering what you do in areas where there isn't room for something like a bioswale, say downtown, and how that fits into the Green Streets program.
Great question. I'm in a fight right now over the Portland Transit Mall on this very topic. How do you get in Green Street treatments in the context of the Portland Transit Mall that is really going to be a constrained street? It's going to have automobile lane, light rail and buses, and you need wide sidewalks given that it's a transit mall. How do you do that? I think the greatest opportunity, and the feedback that I'm getting from folks is, well, you can't. And I'm not settling for that initial answer because what I'd learned on Nato Parkway, which initially also said they could not, is the opportunity for off-site stormwater swales. You might have to pipe it a block away. For instance, the plaza around Big Pink, the old U.S. Bank Tower, big plaza there, also happens to be at the bottom of sort of the gentle slope from PSU to downtown. I think provides opportunities for swale treatments. But even if we had to pipe it to, let's say, McCall Park, Waterfront Park, that is still better to get it in the ground and to have all the benefits that comes with recharging the groundwater than it going into the combined sewers and all the problems associated with it. So it's interesting. We've made a lot of progress in sort of the thinking of planners and developers on sort of this model. But now, one of the unintended consequences of that is that all the planners sort of think that if you can't do it right on site, then it can't be done, even if a block away or 2 blocks away, you do have the opportunity to do this exact same thing. So I've sort of inherited the Transit Mall project late, like Nato Parkway, so I'm kind of up against that thinking and a project that's about 80% designed already. So we'll do what we can.
Have there been any efforts at coordinating with other cities in the region to make this a region-wide program? We've been, the good staff at BES and PDOT have really been leading the way in this effort. And so I think that their work sort of is best described as trying to inspire other folks in the region and nationally to sort of take these standards on, or these kinds of treatments on as standards. I think if we move to and I think eventually we move to the point where these become standards for the city on all new streets, or they become standards in retrofitting existing streets during major maintenance, then I think other people will catch on. Quick question?
Yeah, you said that these retrofits have not shown any sign of compaction issues. Was there any contingency of looking into possible compaction issues and what it would cost to, say, replace these versus replacing stormwater drainage?
Well, the reason, the way we managed the risk around compaction was to not go out and do hundreds of these things. So we really managed it by piloting in various sort of soil conditions around the city. And so that was our way of managing that particular risk, and we're not seeing that. And after 5 or 6 years, we would see that, according to the experts. So I think we're okay now. Where we do experience that, we would have to go back to sort of the old
sewer sort of stormwater piped solution. Or again, look for opportunities maybe a block away or 2 blocks away where you still might face the conditions of soil compaction, but like on this particular site where it really wouldn't matter, except if you live in that house next door. Thank you all very much. You've been a great group.
Before we give our speaker a round of applause, I just want to mention next week, Barry Horowitz from the Port of Portland will be discussing port business development in the age of globalization. But now let's thank Commissioner. Yes?
One more chance to, next week we've got another political leader coming to campus at Wednesday at noon. Rex Burkholder is speaking to the students in Transportation Engineering and Planning Group in the engineering building, so you're welcome to attend there as well.